Interesting topic that's very close to my heart, and I'm sure it's yours. You may have seen that a lot of what I talk about comes on a color-coded system. It comes from a system I developed called Life Colors, and there's a book coming out shortly about that. But today we're going to be talking about a wonderful topic that I'm sure you're all interested in. It's a blue life color. It's obesity, or how to lose weight. Now, many of us, some of us might say, well, you know what, I don't really need to lose weight. I'm slim enough already. But you know what, I think just about every one of us needs to get rid of some fat in our bodies. Even those of us who look quite slim, we call them toffees. They're thin outside but fat inside. You know, you have a lot of fat that is surrounding a lot of your organs, like your heart or your liver or your kidneys. You can't see it on the outside, but it's actually that fat that is called visceral fat that is very dangerous for us. So all of us need to try and get rid of as much of that fat as possible. And it's a strange old term, losing weight. You know, you can lose your keys, you can lose all sorts of things, but actually you can't lose weight. You have to actively do something to burn it off. It's not just going to be done by losing something in your body. It just doesn't happen that way. You have to actively do something to reverse it. And one of the questions I have to ask, you know, this Western culture is fast becoming a global culture. And why is that? It's the Western diet, I call it. You know, high fat, high sugar, high salt, high protein, low fiber, and low nutrients. Even in this country where we have lots of food, there are people who are malnourished just because they're not eating the right amount of nutrients in their normal diet. And this gentleman has something to add to where we are. You know him? Okay, I'm sure most of you know his products. He came up with McDonald's, right? So, and by the way, those of you who think, you know, life is over at the age of 50, at the age of 55 is when he actually started McDonald's. And by the time he died, when he was 84, he left about $12 billion to the Salvation Army. So it was a good business for him, not great for the rest of us. Okay, those of us who take those products, we don't get a good deal, really. And I spend a lot of time going out and speaking in Africa. Not an awful lot of McDonald's in Nigeria, but I understand McDonald's is coming to Africa quite soon. And when it comes, people are going to be saying things like, oh yeah, I think it's all in the genes. It's not in the genes, it's in what we eat. It's in what we do, okay? Because actually, it's a big problem in the world. It's a huge problem. You know, it's an epidemic. More people now are dying from overeating than undereating. You think of all the people that are dying from famines and starvation around the world. More people around the world are dying from eating too much than eating too little. And it's one of the interesting things in life. If you were to ask a scientist, what's the simplest way to live longer? The simplest way. You know, I don't need to know about all the greens and all that. Just tell me, what simple thing must I do to live longer? That answer would be just to eat less calories. With all the experiments that are done in the world, they do it on rats all the time. If you restrict their diets, if they can't eat as many calories, they live longer. That is just the absolute truth. Just by restricting your calories, you prevent certain diseases like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all of those things. But, you know, that's fine for me to say, but what is it about these things that makes the Western diet so attractive and so addictive? Well, I'd like to get the answers from the animal kingdom. Tell me something you know that's interesting about a shark. What do you know that's interesting about a shark? Scratch your brains. Think. What do you know? Sorry? It can regrow its teeth? That's interesting. Yes. Anything else? It can swim backwards. It can't swim backwards. Okay, great. Another interesting fact. They're pregnant for 2 years. I'm not sure about that one. I'm not sure about that one. But it sounds interesting anyway, yes. Yes, his skin is like microteeth. Yes, it's kind of like a killing machine, isn't it? Um, Something that's also very interesting. Let me share this with you. You may know this already, that a shark can smell one drop of blood from 1 kilometer away. Did you know that? So if you try and understand that, a kilometer away, you put a drop of blood here, very soon a shark will be able to detect that. Now, why would it be able to do that? What's the point of that? Okay, let me help you along. Which is it easier to catch, a wounded fish or a fit fish? Easier to catch a wounded fish. A wounded fish is likely to leak a bit of blood somewhere. As soon as a shark smells that, it will say, you know what, I've got an easy fast food waiting for me over there. I don't even have to put out any energy. I can find it. If it's bleeding, I can kill it. That's why it's designed to be able to detect blood a kilometer away. Now, what has that got to do with weight loss? Well, all of us are like that shark. All of us want to save energy. We call this the motivational triad. Every single one of us wants to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and save energy. Every animal does that. Every animal wants to do that. So let's look at the motivational triad for food. We seek pleasure. Sugary food stimulates the pleasure centers in the brain. Now, some of us are quite addicted to sugary food, let's be honest. I mean, I'm one of them too. I have to say, I'm terrible. I treat sugar the same way alcoholics treat alcohol. So I try and avoid it, because if I eat it, I can be eating it for days and, it doesn't do me too good. So, and the reason for it is because every time we take sugar in, it stimulates those pleasure centers in the brain. It's exactly the same as what happens when you take heroin. Exactly the same neurological pathways. That's why it can be so difficult to kick the habit of sugar. Avoid pain. Well, we don't like our blood sugar levels going down because it doesn't make us feel too good. We get grouchy. So try and avoid that by looking for sugary snacks. The best way to save energy is to eat foods that are rich in energy. And those foods are sweet foods and foods full of fat. So sugar and fat does us actually helps us to feel good. And as I've said before, it stimulates pathways the same as heroin. But what else does sugar do? The reason why it leads to weight gain is, yes, sugar has lots of energy, and if you store energy, you store it as fat, but it also increases what we call the insulin resistance. If you have lots of sugar, every time you take sugar in, your insulin levels have to rise to deal with that amount of sugar. But insulin doesn't just deal with sugar, it actually causes your cells to grow and causes you to store more fat. Now, if you have a little cancerous cell in your body and you have lots of insulin in your body, insulin will program that cancerous cell to grow. And all of us have some cancerous cells in our body. Okay, so if you have lots of insulin in your body, you are putting yourself at risk of cancer as well. Now, here's an experiment that they did a few years ago. They took some rats, they fed them with as much sugar as they wanted, and then they fed another group of rats with as much fat as they wanted. And what they found is that the rats with all the sugar and all the fat, they just ate as much as they wanted, then stopped. They didn't put on too much weight. The problem was, when they mixed the fat and the sugar, the rats were not able to stop themselves from eating that combination. So the mix of fat and sugar together does something in us that makes us lose our control over our appetite. And where do you find this combination? Obviously in all the things that we like. Cakes, biscuits, ice cream, custard, chocolate. That has that 50-50 percentage of fat and sugar. And many of you will know that it's sometimes difficult to give up eating biscuits or to give up eating cakes. Oh, it's only me, is it? Okay, that's fine. No, I mean, I can confess, I am like that. I mean, I remember being months free of sugar. I just hadn't taken any sugar in for a long time. And my wife came into the kitchen and she put down a bag, and in that bag was a packet of biscuits. And she went up, had a shower, came back down. By the time she came down, I'd finished that packet of biscuits. And obviously, being the wonderful man that I am, I said to her, "Look what you made me do. You know, it's your fault, it's not my fault." But the reason why this food is so addictive is because it has this combination of sugar and fat. It's very desirable to us. But so how are you going to avoid, how are you going to overcome this temptation? Well, thankfully I've come up with a lovely solution for you. It's called the Dr. Chidi method. Okay, let's take it back. It's called the Dr. Chidi method. No. Anyway, we'll leave it like that. But how do you do it? What you do, you see that cake, you see that donut, you see that whatever, that piece of chocolate. The worst thing you can say to yourself is, "I can't eat the donut." If you say that, you're going to want it even more. So the best thing you should say is, "Okay, I'll eat the donut, but I'll eat it in half an hour." If you do that and at the same time eat an apple, your blood sugar will slowly rise throughout that half an hour, so that after half an hour you'll have enough sugar in your bloodstream to overcome the desire for the donut. So that's why we say, don't resist it, choose to have it, but delay it. That is the Dr. Chidi method. It works. Now, at the end of it, you may find that, you know what, after half an hour, I still want the donut. So do this technique again. Eat another apple. Maybe at the end of the day, you've eaten 5 apples. That's not bad for you, is it? That's pretty good. That's your 5 a day. You're done. Okay? So these are some superficial ways to overcome your desire. Here's another one. Okay. Let me see with a vote of your hands. So let's say I've given you 2 minutes to eat 5 apples. 2 minutes to eat 5 apples. You've got to eat them really quickly. Which apples would you rather have? Would you rather do it with Golden Delicious, or would you rather do it with Granny Smith's apples? So let me see the hands of Golden Delicious. Let me see the hands of Granny Smith. Cool, you're pretty weird up here, man. Most people would say Golden Delicious. And they would say Golden Delicious because, you know, the sour Granny Smiths are quite difficult to get down. Okay? That's what most people would do. What about this then? I want you to eat a big bar of chocolate in 1 minute. Who would do that with dark chocolate? Let me see your hands. And who would be able to do that with milk chocolate? Let me see your hands. Okay, you're a bit normal now. So most people would choose milk chocolate because it's nice and sweet. Dark chocolate is quite bitter. And what we find is, I say that the bitter is better and sour has power, just because if you eat something bitter or if you eat something sour, it suppresses your appetite. It makes it more difficult to keep on eating all the chocolate and custard and biscuits. So if you find yourself in one of those binges, I hope you never do, but if you find yourself in one of those binges and you can't stop, reach for something sour or reach for something bitter. It will put a stop on your desire for sweet things. And if you're able to do that, if you keep on changing your diet and eating the right things, you will find that your taste buds will actually change and your taste will change with it. Now, often people say to me, "Oh, doctor, you see, I've no idea how I got to be 35 stone. I've no idea. You know, I only eat 1 lettuce leaf a day. I only drink the purest water. I exercise every day." For me, you see, obesity is quite simple. Anybody do physics here? Physics? Great, physics. It's really quite simple. There's, you know, the fundamental law of thermodynamics says this: matter or energy cannot be created or destroyed. Okay? Actually, this puts paid to the idea of the Big Bang, because how can everything come out of nothing? But that's a different argument. But matter or energy cannot be created or destroyed. So it's impossible to gain weight unless you are eating that weight. You can't just, you know, magically gain fat. It doesn't happen. You have to have taken it in some way. Okay? And it's simple. Losing weight or gaining weight is just about eating. Thank you. It's just about eating more energy than you burn up. And I'll tell you this. It is very difficult to burn off a bad diet. For example, if you have a Big Mac meal, in order to burn out all of those calories, you would have to run, almost sprint, for 5 hours. None of us can do that. That's one Big Mac meal. So it's very difficult to exercise away a bad diet. Exercise is very important, but what you put in your mouth is even more important. I always say that it's about 80% what you eat, 20% how much you exercise. And often people say to me, "But how can this be true? You know, I eat the same as when I was a teenager." And this is why it's very important that I'm talking to you now. It's very important because I talk about this concept of the middle years. You see, you are approaching your middle years. You're not there yet. But I always say, you know, between the ages of 25 and 55, something happens to our bodies. Our middles increase. That's why I call it the middle years as well. And let me explain why this happens. I'll take you back to when I was a doctor, a junior doctor, newly qualified. I worked for the professor of surgery, and everything had to be done yesterday. Everything was urgent. So you find yourself running throughout the hospital all day. You know, you're so busy that you never even get an opportunity to even go to the toilet. It was awful. I don't know if there are any junior doctors here, but junior doctors now have it a lot easier. You know, when I was a junior doctor, if you were on at the weekend, you would work the whole of Friday, then you'd work Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, then you're back at work on Monday. Sometimes you never get a time to sleep. So in those days, I was burning off loads of calories. But then what happens, you know, you go up the ladder a little bit and they give you another junior doctor to run around for you, and you've got this office. Now, if you're still eating the same, you are not going to be burning off those calories. Okay, so this is the period where you get your driving license, and once you get your driving license, you never have to walk again, right? So you continue just to burn off less calories. And that's why our middles start to increase slowly until one day you say, you know, what's happening to my trousers? I mean, are these shrinking or something? It's not the trousers, it's you. You know, sometimes we try to blame other things, but it's actually us. I want to talk to you also about one topic that is relevant to weight loss too. So if we have the video sound up, that's disgusting. You mean you've never done this? No? Or you don't want to admit to it? You don't do it? No? None of you at the moment take your mother's breast milk? Okay, I'm just checking. You know, there was a lady in London. I think she's still doing it, by the way. She is producing ice cream from her own breast milk. Have you ever tried that? And you're screwing up your face. How can you possibly do that? But you know, my question is this: how come that you screw your face up to human breast milk, but it's okay having cow's milk? How can that be right? That's a different species, right? So we can't take milk from the same species because that's disgusting. Taking it from a cow, that's all right. You know, how have we got to this stage where it's all right to drink milk from a cow? No animal in the wild drinks milk from another animal. No animal in the wild drinks milk into adulthood. There is a reason for that. That is why they don't worry about obesity and cancer and diabetes and all of those things. All of these things that cow's milk predisposes you to. You see, cow's milk is designed to make a little calf into a big cow very quickly. And when we take that cow's milk, it is very difficult for us to lose weight. Very difficult. And I've just been talking to the other group about how cow's milk actually predisposes you to all sorts of other things. Cancer. You know, the proteins in cow's milk can predispose you to cancer. It causes autoimmune problems. That's things like MS, lupus, type 1 diabetes, all of those things, thyroid disease. So it is something really to be avoided. I try not to be negative about anything, but I find it difficult to be positive about cow's milk. All right, so what can we do to reverse obesity? What can we do to lose weight? So let's start looking at our diet. One of the most important things you have to do, I think the most important thing, as well as giving up milk and everything, is obviously avoid alcohol. Alcohol is full of calories, by the way. You know, a glass of wine that everybody likes to talk about, a glass of wine has about 250 calories. A can of Coke has about 150 calories. So, you know, wine is very, very concentrated when it comes to calories. Avoid alcohol and any sweet drinks. And I mean any sweet drinks, that, you know, juices, anything like that. They are concentrated sugar. I often have a hierarchy of drinks. The best drink you can ever have is water. If you really desperately want something sweet, then have something like a smoothie because it's got all the fiber in it. Below that, you can have those freshly squeezed juices that you can do at home. Okay, I don't recommend them, but if you're going to have something like that, it's better than what's just below it, the juices you buy in the shop. Then you have the other sweet drinks, the fizzy drinks. And I think tied at the bottom is probably alcohol and the artificial sweet drinks. The artificial sweet drinks are absolutely lethal. Okay, the artificial sweet drinks, you know, like zero Coke and 1 Cal and all that stuff, they cause cancer, especially in young men, blood cancer in young men. They cause strokes in young women. They cause brain tumors in babies. You might ask yourself, if this is true, how come it's being sold to us? And I'd invite you to look up the history of aspartame and how much money was paid to the American government so that they could get this product on the market. It's absolutely lethal. And above everything, it helps you to put weight on. Nobody who takes these drinks, which are no calories, loses weight. All the evidence shows us that if you keep drinking those drinks because your body is expecting more sugar, it increases your appetite for more sugar. So you'll eat more sugar and you'll eat more calories because you're drinking those drinks. Everyone puts weight on when they drink those drinks. So avoid them like the plague. So avoid all sweet drinks. And the reason why I say sweet drinks, it's when you're trying to lose weight, it's more important to avoid things like grape juice than it is to avoid a donut. Grape juice would do you more damage than a donut simply because the grape juice goes straight into your bloodstream. If it goes straight into your bloodstream, your insulin levels will spike, and that will make you retain more weight. It will help you to build more fat, and that's the last thing you want to do. At least a donut, you have to digest it a little bit before it goes into your bloodstream. So avoid all sweet drinks. I personally just drink water. I met a doctor in a conference last year. He said he's only drank water for the last 40 years, and he looked fantastic. He's in his 70s. He looked amazing. Does you a lot of good. So, next thing to do is to replace energy-dense food, such as those chocolates and biscuits and cakes and all that, with energy-light food, fruit, vegetables, whole grains. So it doesn't mean you have to starve yourself. Actually, with that kind of food, you can eat as much as you like because it will fill you up and you'll end up still weighing less. Eat more, weigh less. That's the idea. Exercise every single day. You know, somebody said to me the other day, oh yes, I bought myself a dog so I can exercise. I said, that's a very good idea. Obviously, this is in America. Sorry to any Americans in the room. But if you're going to walk your dog, make sure you go out and walk your dog. You know, people buy dogs and they get other people to walk the dog for them. It's not quite as good, you know, but most of us are still trying to save energy. Even if you're trying to go to the gym, you look at this. These people are off to the gym. They're taking the escalator. They're not taking the stairs. How does that make any sense? I saw a fight break out outside a gym once, and that's because some person parked right in front of the entrance to the gym, and another person wanted to park there, and they were fighting over it. They were in a gym. They come to exercise. They can't even walk the length of a car park. You know, what is going on? We're always trying to save energy, that motivational triad that we talked about before. And then FITS is a very important acronym, so it stands for frequency, intensity, time, and stretching. Frequency is 7 days a week. Intensity, well, hopefully none of you have high blood pressure, but if you do have high blood pressure, you shouldn't do anything incredibly strenuous. You shouldn't do weight training or high-intensity training or sprinting. You should just do brisk walking. Walking is the best exercise. I'd also say this, as well as walking, there's even other things you can do. Simply by standing more, you burn more fuel. By standing, you will burn twice the amount of fuel as you are sitting. So I always say, look, at home I have my own desk, and it's one of those desks that raises up, so when I'm writing, I write when I'm standing. It has been shown that if you stand for 6 hours a day, rather than sit for 6 hours a day, at the end of the year, you would have burnt up the equivalent amount of fuel as if you would have run 25 marathons in 1 year. Anybody run a marathon yet? No one's, okay. Anyone done 2 in 1 year? Imagine doing 25 in 1 year. Imagine all the calories you would have burnt just by standing 6 hours a day. You would have burnt the equivalent after 1 year. So that's probably the easiest thing you can do. I like to make things easy for people if they want to lose weight. So you don't even have to go out of your house. You just have to stand a little bit more. Now, I always have standing meetings in my office. It makes the meetings a lot shorter, I have to say. But as much standing as you can do. Sometimes if you're watching a television show, why not try it standing? And you know, standing whilst you're writing, you might think that might be a bit uncomfortable, but you get used to it. I find it's very difficult for me to sit and work now. And it's almost impossible to stand and write and get this writer's block. You know, your mind is a lot clearer. You know Winston Churchill, right? Winston Churchill, he wrote his Nobel Prize-winning novel while standing. Now, I know he didn't look very fit. He did lots of other things that were not good for you. But it's just an example of how it keeps your mind clear. You ever heard of The Sound of Music, the film? So that musical was written by Oscar Hammerstein whilst he was standing. And if you ever heard of the Nobel Prize winner Ernest Hemingway, wrote most of his novels whilst he was standing. So there's something about standing that keeps your mind clear, as well as helping you to burn up all this fuel. At least 60 minutes a day of exercise. I mean, everybody's got these new gadgets now. I got myself one of those Apple Watches, and it shows me every time I'm walking or standing or whatever. Very good devices, or Fitbit is another one. But do it at least for 60 minutes a day. Incorporate it into your day. Yeah, you don't have to say, I'm going to the gym, but if you're going to college or if you're going to work, how can I incorporate a walk rather than driving or rather than getting the bus all the way? Very important. And try not to forget to stretch twice a day. It helps to prevent injury. Now, if you do all of those things, you can actually lose weight. It can take time, and I always say, look, if you're trying to lose weight, don't try and lose it quickly. Do it slowly. That's why I called it if you're trying to lose weight. But let me just show you a gentleman who's had a little bit of success.
When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in rivers, and the tears come streaming down your face, when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes to waste, could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you to let it go. But if you never try, you'll never know just what you were. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones. I will try to fix you. Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face. Tears stream down your face. I promise you I'll never learn from my mistakes. Tears stream down your face. Lights will
They have the wind underwear. Huh? The wind block underwear? Yeah.
and I will try to fix you.
So that's quite well done on his regard. That's amazing, amazing transformation. I particularly like the time when he's walking out of his house and he's walking down the road, he's on his own, and all those cars going past, and I'm thinking, I wonder what they must be thinking about him. Looking at that guy saying, what is he hoping to achieve? He's too big, man. What can he do? But you know what? God didn't put the dream in their hearts, they put it in his heart. And often, when you want to make a change in your life for the good, you have to walk alone. It could be even in your own family. Everybody else is going one way, you need to go your own way. And it's important that you decide that, you know what, I want to live the best life God has intended for me. In the same way that he may have said to himself before, I was enjoying life, having a nice life, eating what I want, drinking what I want. But actually, seeing him after he's lost that weight, it's obvious he's now living the life that God intended for him, a healthier, happier life. And that can really resonate with us in all areas of our life, not just weight loss, but everything. But I always say, if you want to lose, you have to wait. You have to be patient. The quick fixes do not work. If anybody who says to you, well, I can help you lose weight in weeks, you may lose weight in weeks. But actually, when you come back to it, you'll probably gain that weight again with about 10% more. There are many ways to lose weight quickly. I mean, I was sick for the first time in my life a month ago. I had diarrhea and vomiting. I must have eaten something really bad. And I lost 10 kilos in a week. I would not advise that for anybody. There are many ways to lose weight. But the best way to lose weight is to have a holistic lifestyle approach. Okay, so I've got 10 minutes to ask you if you have any questions. I can answer them. Or if you don't have any questions, that's all right too. Sorry? How good is olive oil? Yeah. How good is olive oil? I always say, Popeye, you remember Popeye? I always say, he should have spent more time eating his spinach and less time chasing olive oil. Olive oil is oil, it's pure fat. It's better than saturated fat. There's a hierarchy of fats. There's, there's monosaturated fat, which is like olive oil. Then you have saturated fat or polysaturated fat. Then you have trans fats. You've heard of those, right? So trans fat is sometimes it's disguised as hydrogenated fats. Those are trans fats. Those are the most lethal fats for you. If you have those, they cause an awful lot of heart disease and they have an awful lot of weight gain. But olive oil, yes, it's fat. Okay, and for people who want to lose weight, if you have lots of olive oil, you're not going to lose it because it is pure fat.
What are your thoughts on the big juicing trend and craze? Because, I know there's a lot of sugars in fruits and whatnot, but I know with people adding vegetables, you see a lot of success stories of people losing a massive amounts of weight and becoming more healthy and all that kind of stuff. But do you have any to say about
question. So I touched on juicing a little bit earlier. I don't advocate juicing at all. And the reason is because we're not designed for juicing. When God put Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, he didn't give them cups of juice. He gave them fruits to eat. And that's what we're designed to eat. So that fruit has all the right components of fiber and nutrients and hard stuff and soft stuff. That's exactly designed for us. But absolutely, you can lose weight by going on a juicing diet. As I say, you can lose weight many ways. You can lose weight by smoking. Smoking suppresses your appetite. I don't recommend it, though. Lots of people who do juicing as well start to get problems with their stomach because it has a lot of acid. But when you think about it, what is juicing? So the thing that gets me about juicing is that when you see that machine that does all that juicing, it pours out this tiny bit of fluid, then you've got all this fiber on the side. And I know sometimes people use that fiber in cakes and whatever, but it just makes no sense to be doing that to a lovely piece of fruit. Just eat the fruit the way it's designed to be eaten. That is the way. Juicing doesn't make any sense at all. And for somebody who's trying to lose weight or reverse diabetes or prevent cancer, that concentrated sugar does exactly the opposite of what you intend. So I don't recommend it at all.
So what's the best, the healthiest non-dairy milk to have, and what's the worst non-dairy milk to have?
Oh, okay. The answer to that is I don't think you can say. I think soya milk does a lot of good. Okay, soya milk contains these phytoestrogens that can help prevent things like cancer and all. So that's very good for you. But rice milk, almond milk, they're all good. They're all good. It just depends what your taste is, really. Okay, so GMO is another matter. And all I would say is anything that we interfere with becomes a bit lethal for us. So every drug that is made, aspirin, paracetamol, even the safest drugs that are out there, they have bad side effects, okay? So paracetamol can cause liver damage, aspirin can cause high blood pressure, can cause bleeding of the gut. Anytime we introduce anything into a natural process, we make it worse. So it's never going to be as good.
I've got a question. You mentioned earlier about sugars and fats being addictive.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you be addicted to fruit, for example? So excess fruit you could eat. Can you eat as much as you want? If it was sort of fruit and vegetables, can you overeat them?
That's
and then
good.
they sort of become addictive as well because that's a bit of sugar, isn't it? So can
Okay.
you overeat fruit?
Very
and
good.
veg?
Very good question. You all heard that question? Great. So I said that fats and sugars combined can be addictive. What about fruit? I'll be honest and say, I mean, I've never met somebody who says I'm addicted to celery. Oh, once I eat one celery stick, I've got to eat the whole box. I've just never come across those people. I mean, there are certain people who like apples or who like oranges. Few people get addicted to natural fruit in the way that we get addicted to biscuits and cakes. And I think that's the way God designed them. And one of the things about, even if you were addicted to them, so let's say you're addicted to oranges, it's difficult to eat more than a few oranges. You try and eat 10 oranges, it's a difficult thing to do because they're full of fiber, they're full of water. And that's God's natural way of suppressing your appetite. You eat the fiber with the fruit. So the sugar that we're supposed to take in must come with lots of fiber. That's how we're supposed to eat it. Having sugar on its own is never good for you.
Right, coming back to questions
Where are you?
about back at the back.
Okay.
Coming back to a question about soy, as the brother mentioned up there.
Yes.
You do hear a lot of these health scare kind of stories about soy and the dangers of
Yes.
unfermented soy and the processes that soy goes through and the pesticides at this point. I mean, so many health scares. Would you say that soy is something that we as like health reformers should be eating today?
Okay. So there are lots of scare stories about soya. Some of them, they have estrogen in them, so they can cause cancer. Some of them that men should avoid them because they cause infertility. Let me deal with that one first. So soya has phytoestrogens in them. Do you know the country that eats the most soya? Processed or natural? Which country? Sorry? China. China eats the most soya, be it processed or natural. How many people are in China? Do you know? 1.2 billion people. So obviously, and they have a one-child policy, by the way. So obviously it doesn't do anything to impede reproduction. Let me put it that way, okay? It doesn't affect reproduction. It doesn't affect the male hormones. Now the next thing is, people say it contains estrogen, and we know estrogen promotes cancer. So soya doesn't contain estrogen, soya contains phytoestrogen. That is present in in lots of fruits and vegetables. Let me explain what that means. So estrogen, when it comes onto a cell and binds to a cell receptor for estrogen, it tells that cell to reproduce and get bigger. And that's why it makes cancer cells grow. When phytoestrogen, a soya hormone, hits the cell, it binds to that receptor, but it doesn't have the same power to tell the cell to reproduce. So actually what it ends up doing is blocking the effects of estrogen. Anybody who's ever had breast cancer would have had a drug called tamoxifen. Tamoxifen blocks estrogen. Phytoestrogen, and tamoxifen is a phytoestrogen. So phytoestrogens in soya actually help protect you from cancer. They are not cancer causing. Now if you talk about the processed soya, well, anything processed is never as good as something that's not processed, and they have lots of fat in it and maybe salt in it. Those things are not particularly great for you, but actually soya on its own is fabulous.
Day? Sorry. Can you eat like a whole avocado in a day? I mean, is it okay? Because it's natural.
Well, I can't eat one because I don't like them. I just find them a bit too slimy for me. But avocado is good fat. You need fat to eat. Avocado is good fat. Coconut has good fat in it. But the thing is not to eat too much of it. Sometimes you can just eat so much that you can just gain an awful lot of weight. Okay? So I've got one more question, then I'm done. Yes.
Are we supposed to eat fruit with our meals, or we're supposed to separate them?
Okay. Now, why do you ask that question?
Or because I've read somewhere where it said
You've
certain
read
fruits you
somewhere.
can't
You've read
combine
somewhere.
with certain fruits. Yeah, on Google.
Oh, you read it on Google?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, some of you may know that Ellen White said something similar to that. Have you ever heard that? So often people quote Ellen White and say, well, Ellen White says we shouldn't eat fruits and vegetables together, so that becomes a new doctrine for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And anybody eating fruits and vegetables together, well, you know, they have to go before the church board because they're not, you know. Well, Ellen White did say that. I mean, she said that to somebody who had a pretty weak and upset tummy. But you know what? It's probably better if you just separate fruits and vegetables. It's not a doctrine. You can eat fruits and vegetables. Most of us can quite happily and healthily. It's not going to cause any problem. Okay, thank you very much.